Thank you very much, Sam. Now it's time to talk about this elite wide receiving crew, and we'll start with the leader of the crew. From the slot is Jonte Cook, had 6 receptions for 113 yards against Clemson last weekend, and let's roll the tape. The best thing about Jonte Cook, can work from all over the field. This time as a slot, runs a slant route across the middle, big gain of 17 there, but he's not the only guy that cooked on the outside this weekend.
Thanks, Griffin. Now look, there's another junior wide receiver in that room that deserves just as much of attention as Jonte Cook, and that's Darrell Gill Jr., and plays like these are exactly why. Let's show it to you. And there's one more receiver on the docket for you. Dan?
Thanks, John. Let's show you a guy who has some crazy hands for this Syracuse wide receiving core. That's Justice Ross Simmons. Each of Syracuse's receivers has something to offer for Justice Ross Simmons. It's the hands. That's going to come in clutch against Duke.
What about Diaz and Brown's relationship is different? For that, let's take you back to 2018. Fran Brown had just finished his lone season as Baylor's defensive back coach under his former boss at Temple, Matt Rule. After a 7-6 season, the 36-year-old Brown felt ready to go back to be the head coach for the Owls, a school that's just a stone's throw from his hometown in Camden, New Jersey. Unfortunately, an out-of-towner from a bigger school had the same idea, and on December 13th, Manny Diaz, Miami's defensive coordinator, was selected as the program's new leader.
And that brings me to scenario 3. I understand it's a bit jarring, just hear me out, because I know this is the most unlikely possibility, but it's also the most fun.
So in basketball, guys, do you know what kills are in basketball?
No, I have
What?
no idea.
Well, for that, we got to do some investigating.
Oh my goodness.
Kill? What are we? Welcome into CCSI. I'm investigator AJ Myers. Syracuse's defense so far in the young season has been surprisingly strong. Adrian Autry's group has held its 2 opponents to under 50 points. Plus, rivals are shooting less than 35% from the field, and the Orange have scored 49 points off of turnovers. So why do I need the sunglasses on for this? Well, just a year ago, Syracuse gave up the 2nd most points in the ACC per game, and opponents shot 45% from the field. The 3-point line was a jarring 34%. So what on earth changed? According to secret reports, the Orange have learned of a new advanced defensive metric that is called kills. Yes, we're still talking about basketball.
Welcome back inside our CitrusTV studios alongside John Baccio and Griffin Marcy. I understand if you don't recognize us, so especially from before the break. We decided to change up our costumes a little bit, which is what these guys are going to do for this Syracuse team, because we're going to play a little game of Countdown in Costume.
With us, it's time for Countdown Classroom. I hope you two are ready to give your grades because Professor Whaley is back in the house.
But this is a new supporting cast. It hasn't played a lot of time together. In fact, this Utah men's lacrosse program as a whole is pretty new. The university hadn't added a new sport since 1995, but announced that a men's lacrosse program would start in 2019. However, there were a lot of moving parts when building a program, like the fact that the Pac-12, Utah's conference at the time for every other sport they have, doesn't exist in men's lacrosse. So they had to find a new home and somehow ended up in the ASUN. Oh, what teams are in college lacrosse's ASUN, you ask? Air Force, Queens, Mercer, Bellarmine, and Jacksonville. Makes travel a little bit difficult, but that hasn't affected the Utes at all. Since joining the conference in 2022, they have 2 conference championships and 2 NCAA tournament appearances. Last year, Syracuse beat Utah at home, but this year, the Orange head out west. In fact, SU hasn't gone past the Mississippi River for a lacrosse matchup since 2005. Plus, if the Cuse can grab this win, it'd be the 952nd win in program history, 2nd most among Division I programs. So the stakes for this game higher than you might have thought for both teams.
Our Cuse Countdown marquee matchup.
How about this for a marquee matchup, William Kyle and Sanak Jr.
Pick. And as the year is ending, not some superlatives, but also a little bit of fun. So Dan Papp did a little spin on apples to apples, oranges to oranges.
Oh, so original, Dan.
So original. How this is going to work is basically I give you guys an adjective, you guys tell me a player, and then by the end, whoever I like the most, I will peel this orange while you guys are talking.
In real time?
In real time.
And we get to bite a dining hall orange.
Yes.
That's probably on
Has
the
that been
floor.
clean?
What a great, I don't know if I'm going to be
let's
honest
hope it
with
is.
you.
It's time to talk about everyone's favorite defender who also leads the nation in goals, Bo Van Kempen. 18 goals on the season, and she's gotten a lot of them done from the same spot in the field, the penalty quarter.
Sam and Hudson with you at the wall, and listen up. CJ Kirst versus Joey Spolina. Does it get much better than this? I don't really think so.
No.
And these two are so talented to the point where we're going to break it all down in terms of why both of these players are so effective. Hudson's going to break down Spolina in a moment, but I want to start with the opposition for Syracuse this weekend.
When you think of Maryland lacrosse, what comes to mind? And don't say crab cakes. Why don't you think about more than 500 All-Americans, and how about the double-digit national championships? And with that comes a very, very rich tradition. Maryland has built a strong set of values over its 100 seasons, making winning not just the expectation, but the standard. Now, the newest member of the number is making history of his own. Logan McNeely, know the name, just the second goalie ever to wear the jersey number since Melvin Stevens did it back in 1989. McNeely also named to the Tewaaraton watch list before the season and is determined to honor the legendary single digit that he wears on his front chest.
He's just so good at getting into the end zone. 14 total touchdowns on the year. He's probably going to surpass his total from last season. And a lot of those, 10 of them have been with his legs.
Now look, just because I wasn't impressed by the team overall against some rough opponents, and rough in terms of really bad, that doesn't mean I can't be impressed with an 18-year-old playing like this at the D1 level.
Same exact system. They're trying to mix in the run game a little bit more, but again, I would not blame it on the system. I would just blame it on unfortunate timing.
See, I disagree with that. Sure, unfortunate timing, unfortunate scenario, but at the end of the day, it's showing a refusal to adapt. Your percentages there in terms of play-wise are essentially still the same as they were with Angeli under center. Now you're just running less plays because you're getting off the field quicker.
But no, I mean, you look at the score right there, 27-10 against what I would have said was the laughingstock of college football in North Carolina. You want to know what that makes Syracuse? The new laughingstock of college football. I mean, it is just a travesty that they lost this game. Bill Belichick was having a horrific year.
I mean, it's been a really tough go for North Carolina this season. Again, Tar Heels scored just 18 points per game, 10th least in the nation, and there's no resemblance of a pass game. The run has been dormant all season long. They don't even have a top 20 rusher in the conference.
I'm not sure what happened, but Syracuse still ranked as the best defense in the entire Division I, and right behind them, breathing down their neck, 0.1 points per game behind, the Houston Cougars.
It feels like Houston's always a #1 seed, and I always want to pick them because they always look so good in the regular season. But you still can't deny the fact that this program has become a blue blood in college basketball. They really weren't before Kelvin Sampson arrived down there in Houston. He has completely turned around this program.
This blitz defense, one of the best in the entire nation. I mean, you see the numbers on your screen there. Syracuse's defense staunch as well, but Houston in a different level, especially when you take into account they played Auburn earlier this season.
I just don't think that we've seen the same aggressiveness from Syracuse early on this season that we have Houston. When Syracuse goes and plays the Cougars in Las Vegas, you're going to see the double teams just come out of nowhere, and I don't think J.J. Starling or Kyan Anthony, they have the guards to handle that right now.
Both of these players, so good. They both played 5 games. Fleming's doing the bulk of the work in points per game, over 17 as a freshman. That is ridiculous stuff. And it's the efficiency for Fleming's, 71%. And why not add 5 assists to his name as well?
Been so impressive. Maybe his second most important win. They're coming fresh off of against Clemson, or you lose Steve Angeli, but still you pull out the win. Even that win against UConn, you show grit. You're down 20-6 in the 4th quarter. So this team is serious.
Penn State, Indiana. Oh, we just got word Indiana just took a lead. Ben, are you doing okay?
I'm trying not to fall to my knees right now. That's what I'm trying to do. My goodness.
I tell you what.
Yeah, I would say it's the turnovers. That's been the biggest problem for Syracuse. And against Duke, they plain and simply just got out-physicaled. And you look at the leaders on this team, I keep saying it's a leadership problem.
Plus, a little stat that not many know about, PFF gave Angeli 8 big-time throws. quote, big-time throws as per PFF. That was the most in college football last week.
Well, the thing for me is, I mean, you mentioned Shane Blakeney. He had 24 points and 7 threes against Colgate, and they still lost. So what they need from Blakeney is for him to put up a similar performance, and then they need Vanderhorst to put up one of his career-high performances. Confidence in all those press conferences, and that was the correct thing to do with having Collins as the starting quarterback. But then every now and then, we'd see Luke Harney, the true freshman, come in for a drive when Collins wasn't playing good, and then come out for a drive. Right? Luke Harney's almost entire redshirt has been wasted this season. He's got 1 game left, and he's had 6 total dropbacks. PFF and his rushing grade, even receiving grade as well. So that player all the way on the left over there will not be in this one. So it's all up to Carson Beck. It's all to Malachi Tony. I mentioned the play action offense.
Funny to watch week in and week out how much he constantly backs his guys and how much he has really put into this program. Another thing with going to Penn State would be, we all know that Fran Brown loves his Northeast guys, specifically his Jersey guys that he recruits to this school oh so often. If he were to go to Penn State, let's say, or any of those other big-time job openings, those horizons would have to expand quite a lot.
Nick, plenty of room to improve, especially you look at some of the second halves in these last couple of games going back to Towson, Maryland. You can even go back a couple games to Vermont. The defense kind of stalled out in that second half, was really dominant at the beginning, but then slowly but surely started to maybe take the foot off the gas a little as the game went on.
Vanderverde and Casey Benoit, and now when you take away Bianca Chevrolet, you take away Katie Goodale, there is not a lot to work with on the defensive side of the ball for the Orange.
No, not at all, Skylar. I've said this on record a few times. I think the window for this team to win a national championship closed.
Hi everyone, welcome to Q's Countdown from inside our CitrusTV studios alongside Drew Alba and Dan Shalom. I'm Nicholas Whaley, here to get you ready for Syracuse and number 2 Houston. Men's basketball in full swing.
Syracuse put up a good fight against Georgia Tech last year at the Dome. Georgia Tech was ranked 24th at the time, and that was really the first big win from Fran Brown. What else has Georgia Tech provided this year to make them so relevant, building on what they had from last season?
Well, we talk about the cardiac Cuse. It might be the cardiac Yellow Jackets.
They've let the least amount of points per game defensively of anybody in all of Division I. So how much can we look into that, Dan? Does that say anything about how good Syracuse has been? And does this Monmouth game it's just a little bit of a red herring? Powerful words from Coach Fred about Noah Abdel, who's only managed a few minutes this season for Syracuse against Drexel. But Dan, I want to go to you. Just the depth of this team and the energy of this team that we really just went missing against Monmouth. What does what Coach Fred say really emphasize? Because they, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, they're number 2 in the country when it comes to opponent points per game, and that is impressive in itself. And I know, Dan, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. You mentioned this to me off camera, but they probably should be number 1 considering that the kind of opponents that they've had. But Drew, I mean, what have you made of the Houston defense, and just how good have they been?
That SMU game, a large part due to that was the fact that the defense was able to stop the Muskies on drive after drive and give this offense just a chance. They weren't able to capitalize, but as much of a chance as possible. And that's majorly led by a couple of freshmen in Antoine Delorier and Demetrius Samuel Jr. John, those 2 guys are standing out on the defensive end, even with this Syracuse team that gives up the most total yards in the ACC.
5-0 to start. Drew, start with you. I mean, what's gone wrong with this Miami team?
The problem has been, they're right there, right? Number 18, number 10 in the preseason.
In the last time out, guys, they took down the 25th ranked team in the nation in Florida State. It was a close one throughout, but ultimately 3 scores in that fourth quarter, Griffin, would push this Pitt team ahead, and that's really all they needed.